Okay, so moving on to round 16. Please do like and subscribe, guys. We've got Zay Jones, Corey Davis, Jared Goff, Ryan Tannehill, Austin Hooper, Baker Mayfield, Taysom Hill, Marlon Mack, Isaiah Likely, Brevin Jordan, AJ Green, and Darrell Williams. This is a really interesting round. Like, you can see that there's some really good and there's some really bad when it comes to advance rate. Plenty of players who just gave you nothing. But that's kind of okay where we're at this point in the draft. You are taking speculative shots. And that kind of translated over at fantasy points over expected. Even Zay Jones, who was fantastic, wasn't putting up positive fantasy points over expected consistently. And we'll have to start with Zay Jones. Friend of the show, Josh Norris, he was calling it all summer. He had 4 top 8 finishes, ran a route on over 90% of routes for the Jags. He was rarely coming off the field. He had the 18th most targets among wide receivers and the 14th most red zone targets. Did you buy into the Zay Jones sort of sleeper pick, or were you, like many people, just thinking, he's bounced around a bit, it's kind of hard to believe that now it's all going to click?
I bought him. And I don't think I can't argue that it was not a great buy. It's not a good or a bad buy, basically is my point. At a half PPR, he's about 1, 2, I think like 4 usable games up into finals. Five usable games. And at that point, it's a net positive. Right, you're getting 5 contribution weeks, 4 contribution weeks from a streaking deep threat wide receiver. Right, that's what his role is. That's a win because that's all you're paying for. Round what you just said to yourself, round 16. For these kind of guys, sign me up. I think I liked him. I took a lot of them. I don't think the competition for him with his guys were at the same level. Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram were fighting for different type of targets, and I think it showed. I don't know what that means for next year, but I enjoyed it. I had about 20 to 30% of Zay Jones. He costed you nothing, and I think his role with the 0 competition, 4 targets was perfect.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with any of that. Definitely with Calvin Ridley there, it feels like it might be a little trickier.
Definitely.
Moving
That's
on.
the part that's scary.
Yeah. Jared Goff was another player who definitely outplayed people's expectations. He was the QB 10 in total points scored, threw for over 4,000 yards, and he was the 6th most among all quarterbacks, 29 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. We've seen Jared Goff play well over the course of his career when things are right. And the writing seemed to be on the wall that this offensive line was good. We knew his skill group was incredibly good. We'd seen Amon-Ra St. Brown be a complete stud the previous season. We knew that he was getting DeAndre Swift, as healthy as DeAndre Swift can be, and he had TJ Hockenson back healthy. Should we have been drafting Jared Goff 2-3 rounds earlier?
Yeah, we should have. We talked about this. Great line, great receiving core. Might be a run-heavy team possibly with Dan Campbell there, but who knows? But I think where Matt Ryan was, Jared Goff should have been right there, right? You're asking yourself, is this team going to survive defensively? Probably not. The Lions were the worst defense in the league last year, and I think the worst defense in the league this year, or at least bottom 2, right? So either way, they think they were always in that case. They're going to go into shootouts. I think for like 5 weeks straight, teams that were playing them were putting up their best fantasy points against them, right? So I think that he should have been where Matt Ryan was, right? There's no rushing upside, but you ask yourself, can Jared Goff throw me 3 touchdowns this week? I think you get that answer is about 30% of the time. I think he could. So at his going rate, you should have bought him there, saying that 30-something to 40% of the time, this guy might throw 3 touchdowns. And that's all you need to make a fantasy relevant quarterback.
Yeah, and that feels like a completely fair estimation for where we should be drafting him going into this season. Obviously, it depends what we do around him and stuff. One player who sometimes masquerades as a quarterback. He's not somebody that a lot of fantasy people enjoy talking about, but Taysom Hill finished the season as the tight end 7, 9.2 half PPR points per game, 7 double-digit games, 7 touchdowns. I think he had less than 20 receptions on the season because of all this. The Saints really would struggle to move on from him. His contract is ridiculous. It's still like $14 million this year. It's going to cost them. So they seem stuck with him for another year. Should we just be at a point where we know what we're getting from Taysom Hill? We know he's just going to be a difficult player to project or predict. But say, okay, well, sometimes the good outweighs the bad, and anywhere where he's tight end eligible, we should be drafting him.
Yeah, I say that like so sadly because I was an anti Taysom Hill guy. Just because I just thought he was just a goofy player in the league, just the worst of it. But you're talking from a tight end perspective, he had I want to say 8 contribution weeks, right? He put up at least 7 points or more, or 8 points, or 10, or 12, or 9, or 30. My God, like you have to draft him next year. I wouldn't take him anywhere in the top 12, like tight end, round 12 or anything. But if he went round 13 to 18, I'm taking him any chance you get because he is this amalgamation of a guy that could go out there and just be a gadget player. He's exactly what it is. He's exactly the gadget player when you hear the word gadget player, want to be. Taysom Hill did it. The results don't lie. 7 double-digit games at the tight end position. That's the grossest thing in history. Even if they were the first 7 games of the year, who cares? It's amazing upside from where he got drafted. He was even undrafted for a good chunk of the year too.
Yeah, and I think, there'll be people who make claims that he should be drafted as a running back because that's how he got all his touchdowns. He's rushing them more than he's catching anything, and it'd be completely fair. I doubt that we see that happen, but yeah. Okay, moving on.
He's a complete unit of a man too. He's 6'2", 230 pounds. Sure, small for a tight end, but for a running back, for a quarterback, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's a huge guy.
Pivot to someone who's not huge, Baker Mayfield. He had quite a strange season, really. He started off as the Panthers QB1 before ending up on the Rams, and he was very similar in a lot of ways for his spells with the Panthers and the Rams. Like, they weren't good situations, either of them. But we went in, well, I used the royal we. I definitely wasn't aiming it, but a lot of people thought that Baker Mayfield was going to be the Panthers' best quarterback that they'd had in several years. How did you feel about him going into this year?
I hated him, actually. I've been a very anti-Mayfield guy since after his rookie year. I thought his rookie year was amazing. He actually has one of the better rookie years we've had in a while, next to Justin Herbert. But he's bad. He's not good at this. He's not good for fantasy. He's never been good for fantasy. He's never broke 4,000 yards passing. He's not a 30 touchdown guy. He's not none of these things. His highest touchdown was 27 touchdowns thrown, and that was his rookie year. After that, it's been 22, 26, 17, 10 this year. I don't know why people sign up for him. I don't see it. I think that this year, what's going to happen is since he won some games and he's going to be with Sean McVay, and if he somehow ends up as a Ram again next year as a starting quarterback, I don't think he will, but if it ends up happening, people will buy in, I think, and still draft him. I think he should be completely undrafted across the board. He had 0 contribution games this year. 0.
Yeah, I think the thing with Mayfield, it's a bit like Gardner Minshew on a level where people buy into the personality of it. It's like, oh, Baker's so crazy, Baker's so funny and stuff like that. And it's like, so what? That's great. But I don't want him on my team. I don't want him on my fantasy team. And I don't want him anywhere near any player that I've drafted either.
Gardner Minshew had more contribution games, and he played only 2 games this year. Mayfield literally had 0 contribution games. He has no games, I think, that were at 19 points. So literally he roster clogged you. That's all he did. You could have taken anybody else that had a better chance. And quarterback position is the easiest to get a contribution point out of. You just have to be in a losing game. He was nothing but losing games, and he still could have found a way to contribute.